Good morning and welcome back to Food for Thought. So, I've noticed there's a couple things that have been floating around gaining traction when we're talking about the police, since this is the flavor of the month right now. What should we do about this? Should we defund the police? Should we disband the police? And what are the problems associated with policing and their departments? Well, first of all, let's talk about defunding the police. What does that mean? Does that mean we're going to just start not paying police officers? Does that mean that we're just going to start shutting down police stations? No, I think what that means is a reallocation of current funds. So, if we're going to reallocate a certain amount of money towards policing, where does the money go? So, before we get started with that, let's give you a little background on how police budgets work. Public sector, they have a budget. They're not profit based, not like the private sector where you have a balance sheet and where you have plus and minus. In the public sector, you have a budget. Say, for example, the city of whatever has a $20 million budget. Out of that $20 million, they've got to pay for all of their staff, and this is for policing. They've got to pay for the police chief, the lieutenants, the captains, the police officers, all the various sections, and everything else that goes with running a police station and a police organization. So, out of the $10 million, say for example you have a year, we're going to cut the budget by $2 million. So we're going to take $2 million out of that budget. So instead of $10 million, now you have $8 million to run your police budget. What do we do with the $2 million? Well, some have said let's put some of the money back into poor communities, minority communities, more community-based projects. The question is, how are you going to do that? Who's responsible for it? And how do you maintain oversight of it? So, in order to do that, now you're going to have to create another committee, which means more people, which means you've got to pay them, and you're going to have oversight on those people too, and who are they accountable for, and where does the money go, and how is it being spent. Defunding police sounds well, but you're going to have to create yet another section of government to maintain that. Where does it go? So is it really worth the savings? Are you really going to say we're going to take $2 million from the police and we're going to go ahead and put it in whatever kind of community and whatever kind of programs? That means somebody's got to be paid to maintain and watch over it. And what happens is, instead of just taking money from the police, you've just created another section of government that you have to monitor itself. So that's not necessarily the way ahead. I understand why people want to say defund the police, stop wasting money on things that aren't being used, or it could be better allocated. But let's be realistic. Anyone who knows how the public sector works, that you don't just take money from one and give it to another. Okay, especially if you're going to start up a program like this. If something was already in place and you already had people on the staff that could do it, you could divert some of the funds, you can reallocate it. But you're going to defund the police and create a new section. You're going to create a new program which has its own nuances, its own ups and downs, its own pros and cons. It's going to have its own issues. So now you're going to pay people to do what? Make sure that the money goes to a certain location, a certain area, and who determines this? So you're going to create a lot more headaches than what you would think. Okay. So part two, should we disband the police? Probably not a good idea, because for those economically challenged people, those at the bottom rung of the ladder, those poor people, those people who are barely making ends meet, or maybe some even middle class folks, when they do need police responses, it's going to take them a while to get there, because now you have not only defunded the police, let's go ahead and disband it. Let's break the police up. That's not going to work. That only hurts people who cannot afford their own private security, which is probably the one percenters. The one percenters can afford to have private security. They can move in gated, guarded communities where people are protecting them 24/7. No matter where they go, they have a security team with them. That's 1% problems right there. That's not you and I. That's not the average American. Disbanding the police only emboldens criminals even more. You're not going to get rid of the police. What we have to do is have a paradigm shift as to how police officers conduct their day-to-day business, how they do their operations. I don't know if you've seen the video about the Buffalo police officers that pushed the elderly man down, but that right there is a problem. You have police officers pushing a man down, and then they kept going like nothing happened. The police department itself issued a statement initially that said he tripped and fell. No, if you look at the video, two police officers pushed him, and then eventually the Buffalo Police Department had to backtrack on what they said and suspended the two police officers. Well, as if that wasn't bad enough, 57 members of their tactical squad who have been chosen to quell riots or what have you, or civil disorder, unrest, 57 of those guys resigned from their tactical squad positions. They're still part of the police station, still part of the police force rather, but they resigned their tactical portion of their duty. So, in protest, in support of the two police officers that pushed the guy down. Now, what problem do you see with that? The problem is inherent with police officers protecting others that engage in, at best, questionable and in some cases criminal behavior. This is the problem. When you have officers defending other officers who are doing wrong, there's the problem. It's not going to change until you get rid of the officers who decide to want to defend officers who engage in questionable and sometimes criminal behavior. All you're doing is emboldening them. So rather than say, hey, officer, you two knuckleheads did this, you're on your own. We're not going to back you on this. You knew right from wrong. You pushed the guy down. You kept going. And you know what? That's that. Until police officers come to bat for each other and not be afraid of the blue wall or the blue line, you know what? Police officers seem to be, and I'm not bashing police officers after 28 years in the military, all of which were in the military police corps and also CID. I'm not going to say that there's not bad police officers. There obviously are. There's bad in every organization. No organization is pure. But you can't continue to cover for bad behavior and expect things to change. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is what? The definition of insanity. So until the police agencies change, forced change, this is not going to get any better. We're just going to revisit this days, weeks, and months, years down the line, and then we're going to say, you know what, we haven't learned a thing. We're still rewarding bad behavior. We're still continuing to let these police officers get away with this. Defunding the police, probably not a good idea. Disbanding the police, definitely not a good idea. Let's take a look inside these organizations, peel back the layers. It's like peeling an onion. The more you peel, the more you cry, but that's okay. Eventually, you're going to get to the root cause of it, and then we're going to have to fix it. And it's not just the police, it's the communities as well. So everybody's got to do their part to try to get at the root cause of this. And at the end of the day, you can't sit there and come up with an instant solution. The problem with policing in this country has been here for decades. You're not going to fix it overnight. It's not going to happen in a year, 2-3 years. It's not going to happen. We have to admit that there is a problem first, and we've got to get to the root cause of it, and then we're going to have to try to find a way ahead. Now, granted, you're not going to please everybody, but we need to find the best way that helps the most people while causing the least amount of harm. That, as they say, is that.